Look, there's the camera. And we're going to talk about pork crackling. Do you love pork crackling? I don't mind it. But I got asked yesterday, how do we do pork crackling? I got a bit of cheap IGA pork here. It's just wow, it's a boned out leg. And all I've done is I've pulled it out of the plastic and I've dried off the flesh, and I'm going to sit it in the fridge now for about 3 or 4 hours, and we're going to get it in the oven in a minute, aren't we? Time for some crackling? All right, let's do it. I like to give it an extra bit of scoring than what you'd get. A good butcher will normally score it quite heavily before they truss it. This again is just a cheap bit of meat. I'll just run a few more score lines through it because I find that the olive oil and the salt ends up penetrating it better. So, scored up nicely. Now I've got the oven at 220, absolutely smoking hot. Don't put it in while it's heating up. Get your oven absolutely roasting before you bother putting it in. You can't put too much salt on this, guys. You cannot put too much salt on it. So I'll start off like this. Rub that salt in. And on the back, because you want it to taste good. Cannot have enough salt, and I'll pull it out of the oven and I'll add more salt to it as I'm pulling it out, but you want that to be absolutely coated. And I find that this more coarse salts to go, flake salt, anything like that, will create a far better crackling than just straight iodized. If anyone wants to prove me wrong, I'm all ears. But I absolutely coat it in salt. When you think you've got too much salt on, you're wrong. There's no such thing. Right, so that is heavily seasoned in our tray into our very hot oven. Now I used to do the salt and put it in the oven low and then bring it up to finish the crackling. These days I set the crackling and then I bring it down in temp to 170 and just low, slowly finish it off, and I find it ends up relaxing the meat better than trying to bring it up at the end. And then a nice long rest, preferably somewhere cooler, because the cold air just starts to really set that crackle and gives it that crunch. So I'll pull it out in 15, 20, start having a look at how it's going, a bit more olive oil, a bit more salt. Once the crackling's set, then you can bring it down to 160 and just wait till it probes up to the right temp. Okay, so we've pulled the pork out. It's probably the second time I've done it now, and I'm just giving it a bit more oil and again more salt. But you can see, if you just come in a bit closer, you can see that it's starting to crackle up now. It's a fine line now between the crackling going from being perfect and being burnt. So we're just going to keep an eye on it for the next 5 minutes while it fully crackles up, but it's starting to get there. So I'll come back to you. All right, so we've pulled out the pork. Looks really good. It's crackling. Unfortunately, I'm probing it with this probe, and it's reading. What do we got? So it's reading 57 degrees, which is still quite raw. I don't think it's right. I think it's buggered basically. So sometimes that's where a bit of experience pays dividends. So I'm going to pull it out and rest it up now. Definitely feels like it's more cooked than not. So yeah, there you go. That's what the crackling should be looking like when it's finished. Very glossy. We'll carve this in a minute, but that is how easy good crackling is. You don't need to have a really good cut of pork. You don't need to dry it out in the oven beforehand, or use a blow dryer, or pour boiling water over it, or lemon juice, or all the stuff you've heard. For me, it's just a lot of olive oil, a lot of salt, and just make sure that you've scored it up well. So we're gonna have some dinner now. Thanks for watching. Pass the test?